Hello, math students. Welcome back to our module on linear equations. This is lesson 18, and it is called There is only one line passing through a given point with a given slope. Our goal for today is we will practice understanding all the parts of slope-intercept form. The question that I want you to be thinking about during this lesson is, can you have two different lines that pass through the same point with the same slope? And if so, why or why not? All right, so we're going to go over some information of things to remember because we've been talking about slope throughout several lessons recently, and we need to make sure that you are remembering what slope is and how to find it. Quick check, is this graph correct? So we need to decide, does the graph that you see match the equation that you're given? And if you remember, this is in slope-intercept form, y equals 1/2 x plus 4, remembering that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And so basically what it is telling you is that the b, and if you remember correctly, the b tells where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, that's what the B tells us. And if you look at this one, this right here is the B. And so that's telling us that you need to see if the line crosses where 0, 4 is. So this B means 0 for your x value, 4, for your y value, because that's what 4 on the y-axis would look like. So we look at our graph and we know here's 1, 2, 3, 4. So far, it looks like it's correct. So then the next thing that we have to do is we have to apply the slope, and the slope right here is the m. Remember, m equals slope, and the slope for this is 1/2. And it says that what you do once you find the 4 is this slope says you go up 1 to the right 2. So I have to go up 1 to the right 2. So if I do that, I go up 1 and to the right 2, my next point would be right here. And then I go up 1 from there and to the right 2, so my next point would be right here. So if we're actually graphing this line right here, we have to say that the graph that is down here is not representative of this equation. And the reason why we know it is because if you're looking at this, this is a positive slope, right? It's a positive slope. And if you're remembering correctly, positive slopes go up when they move from left to right. This line is actually going down. So what this slope needs to be, in order for this to be correct, is you need to have a negative slope. And we do not have a negative slope. What we would need it to be is it would need to be y equals, it says go down 1 and to the right 2. So it actually has to be negative 1/2. Okay? So in order for this equation to match this graph, we would write it y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4. That equation right there is what defines this line right here. And so to answer the question, is the graph correct? The answer that we have to write is no, because the graph shows negative slope. Okay? And it's very important that you be able to recognize that, okay? And so that's how we can prove that the graph does not match the given equation, okay? All right, so now we're moving on to showing what we know. Under the show what you know, it says y equals 7/4 x minus 5. And so what I would like you to do, get in the habit of kind of it becoming a pattern of what the things we do, is I would like you to, looking at the equation, identify what the slope is and identify what the y-intercept would be. And remember that slope is the m and y-intercept is the b. And so if we remember what that is, we have y equals mx plus b. And so according to this, if we're using what we know, this guy right here has to be our m. So our slope for this line is 7/4. So what that means is you are going up 7 and you are going to the right 4. That's what that slope is telling us. And then the b for this example is going to be -5. And the reason why we know that it's -5 is subtraction is the same as adding the opposite, and so this truly is a -5. So we have -5 is the b, and remember, the b tells you where on the y-axis that the line crosses. So that means that we would have to go down to -5 on the y-axis to find the point where it crosses it. Okay, so did we find the slope? Yes, we did. Did we find the y-intercept? Yes, we did. So if we needed to graph this, which would be the next step, you know that you have to go down to -5 on the y, so you're going 0, -5 to find that exact point, and then from that point, you're going up 7 to the right 4, up 7 to the right 4, up 7 to the right 4. So again, you know on this one that your line is going to be a positive because the slope says it's positive, but you're also moving up 7 to the right 4, up 7 to the right 4, up 7 to the right 4. So it's moving in the positive direction. Okay, so that was a good little way to remember those. And then the next one that we have to do, it's actually in standard form. So again, what I want to remind you is if you turn it into slope-intercept form, then you can very easily find your slope and your y-intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, remembering that I'm trying to get y by itself. So I'm going to, this is a positive 2x, I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. And then the next step is to say -6y equals -2x plus 18. And now I'm going to divide everything by a -6 because I'm trying to get y by itself, everything by a -6, everything by a -6. And when I get done with that, I am left with y, because -6 divided by -6 equals 1. 1 times y is y. -2x divided by -6x gives me a positive 1/3 x. 2 goes into 2 once. 2 goes into 6 3. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so that's how I got 1/3 x. And then plus a positive 18 divided by a -6 would give me a -3. And so now I have my equation written in slope-intercept form. So I know on this one that my slope is going to be a positive 1/3, and my y-intercept, or my b, on this one is, again, subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. So now I know that my b is going to be -3. So again, just as a reminder, if we were to graph this, I would go down to 0, -3. And then from there, I would go up 1/3, up 1/3, up 1/3, up 1/3. And so again, if you can see, I'm going to have a positive slope because this right here is positive. So that slope tells us that we are going up 1 and we're going to the right 3. And so that's how we know what the slope is for that line. Okay? All right, so now we need to address our title, because in the title it says there is only one line passing through a given point with a given slope. It also said in our question that we're supposed to be thinking about, can you have two different lines that pass through the same point with the same slope? Well, boys and girls, you definitely can have two lines that pass through the same point. We proved that right here, okay? But what you saw when we graphed these is you cannot have the same line. It says, can you have two different lines that pass through the same point with the same slope? As long as they have different slopes, like these had different slopes. This says positive slope, positive 1/2. This says negative 1/2. This is the line for a negative 1/2 with a different slope. And this is positive 1/2 as your slope. So that right there shows you that it's two different lines. So the idea of having the same point, which right here, 4 was the same point, with the same slope, then you're just building the exact same line. So if I cross right here, even if I went the other way and said, okay, down 1/2, down 1/2, down 1, down 1/2, down 1/2, my line would keep extending, but it would not have a different slope. The slope would still be that same slope. Again, this one would be the exact same slope. So that tells you right there that you cannot have two different lines. The only thing that gives you different lines is if the slopes are different. Okay, that's what you need to learn from that question. The only thing that will give you different lines is if the slopes are different. If the slopes are the same, you're just extending your line past that one point, okay? So is the answer, can you have two different lines that pass through the same point with the same slope? The answer is no, because if you do, you're just extending the same line. It is not a different line, okay? All right, kiddos, our goal for today we will practice understanding all the parts of slope-intercept form, which we did. We talked about the M, we talked about the B, we talked about the Y, we talked about the X. Those are all of the other points, and so it's very important that you understand that. And then understanding that you cannot have the same line or the different lines if you have the same point and the same slope. Those will be two different lines. Okay? All right, kiddos, that's all I have for you today. I'll talk to you soon. Sorry about the phone. Bye!